Are we ready to proceed? Okay. Excuse me. Good afternoon and welcome to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. The Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal appointed by City Council to make decisions on certain types of applications under the Planning Act. My name is John Blatherwick and I'll be chairing this hearing today. With me are my fellow panel members, Bonnie Oak-Charan, Stan Wilder, Heather McLean, and Michael Wildman. Please take note that this video conference is being live streamed on YouTube. The video will be archived along with today's agenda on the city's website. Before we begin, we have a few items to outline for your information. While the issues surrounding development in the city are broad, our mandate is quite limited. The committee cannot consider aspects of the proposal that are not related to the required variances: noise, pollution, property maintenance, property values, prosecution for illegal construction, personal comments regarding neighbors, agents, or applicants, additional variances without proper public notice. If there is an identified need for an additional variance or variances, including an increase in the extent of the relief required, a recirculation of the application is required. Part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. And I'm looking at my list of speakers, and those sign postings have not been confirmed. So we will have to administer an oath to applicants and or agents before we can hear their presentation. Regarding quorum, if this is lost during the hearing due to technical difficulties, the proceedings will be paused to allow time for the resolution of the issue. Failing the ability to reinstate quorum, hearing of the items remaining will resume at the outset of the next regularly scheduled meeting of the committee. In terms of the hearing process, listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen are the applications we will hear today. For the sake of efficiency, the committee may deal with agenda items in a different order. Note that the committee members have reviewed application materials prior to this hearing and any written submissions received in support or in opposition. In addition, the committee will hear today oral submissions from any interested parties as part of our proceedings. The committee may ask for a brief presentation by the applicant, followed by questions from the members where clarification may be required. The public submissions portion of the hearing will then begin, and any interested parties will be invited to make their submissions to the committee. Panel members may then ask follow-up questions or added clarification may be required. When you are called upon to provide your comments, we will ask you to do the following. Start with stating your name and municipal address for the record. We may ask you to spell your name. Then begin your submission by addressing your comments to the panel members. You may ask questions, but please direct them only to the chair. Please limit your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at the committee's discretion. Once all interested parties have had an opportunity to address the panel, the public submissions portion of the hearing will then be closed. The committee will then make an oral decision to either grant or deny the application. The committee may also choose to reserve its decision. In such case, the panel will deliberate further on the evidence presented immediately following adjournment of the public hearing. In either case, the committee will send within 10 days of its decision, and to all the parties and those who have requested it, a written notice of decision that sets out the reasons for the decision. All decisions of the committee are subject to a 20-day appeal period, during which the decision can be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a fee. Before we begin, are there any declarations of interest regarding items on this agenda or that on panel 2 or panel 3? Okay. We have the minutes from January 12th, 2022 to adopt. Everyone has taken a look at them. I think some amendments are made. All in favor of the minutes as amended? Minutes are adopted. We'll now move to adjournment requests. And we have 2 requests today and a possible third. The first adjournment request is item number 5 on the agenda, 325 Hinchy Avenue. And this is a request which has come from the planning department. There's a planner there.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Spicula, if you could articulate the department's request for the adjournment, please.
So the development as proposed is resulting in 3-unit dwelling, and the applicant has to apply for appropriate minor variances to permit this development.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCullough. I believe the agent for this application is Mr. Gelkatzi.
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Your address for the record, please, sir.
331 Osgood Street.
You've heard the department's articulation of their request for an adjournment on this application. Are you in support or an objection to an adjournment?
We're in support, and we are looking at the probability of a recirculation, so we're looking at March the 17th.
If we can accommodate March 17th.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Just before we adjourn this, Mr. Gelkatzi, the committee has a couple of questions that I think would make it easier for us to deal with this application in future. How many units are currently within that dwelling envelope right now?
2.
Okay. So there's not 3. So this is legally a duplex right now.
Yes, currently it is legally a duplex.
Okay. All right. Okay. So there'll be a recirculation. Mr. Garnett, if this has to happen, or this happens, how long what are we looking at as far as a timeline on a rescheduled hearing date?
Mr. Chair, it will depend on when we get all the materials we require. As soon as we have the fee paid for the recirculation and all the variances identified, we would schedule the application for the soonest possible hearing.
So I think it's probably best, Mr. Gelkatzi, if we adjourn this sine die so that you can.
Well, we would have the application in by this Friday. So, I mean, all of the minor variances that have already been listed, we're just going to do a quick review tomorrow morning. But as far as my understanding is, we'll have all the information in by Friday.
And to the planning department, if the applicant's materials are in your hands by Friday, how quickly can you deal with these changes?
So for review of the application, we will require standard 2 weeks, but after that it's recirculation question. So.
Okay. So with that, Mr. Garner, is March 17th a possibility, or are we going later?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm just bringing up the dates. It looks to me like if all the materials were in this week, it could be possible to schedule for March 16th.
Okay.
Subject to staff capacity, of course, but again, as soon as we get them, we will put the application on the nearest possible hearing, which could be March 16th.
Could be, but not guaranteed.
If they happen to come in next week, Mr. Chair, we would of course have to adjust.
Yep. So to the members of the panel, do we adjourn this sine die or cross our fingers and hope that Mr. Gelkatzi can make this happen and we can get this on the agenda on the 16th of March?
Mr. Chair, it would seem to me that the risk is all on the proponent here. If I were in his seat, I would go sine die, but if he wants to run the gauntlet and assume he can make it, then that's on him. But then he's stuck with the reapplication process if he misses that date.
I think Mr. Gelkatzi, it would be a lot safer for everyone if we just adjourned this sine die. And hopefully we can get it on for the 17th.
Mr. Chair, I agree on the sine die, because if we get everything in on Friday, then having staff deal with it the way they have in the past, I'm sure we'll probably get onto that date. If not, we'll be on to the following date. That's fine. Thank you.
Right. So on the matter of the adjournment of item 5 and sine die, all in favor? Okay, application is adjourned. Thank you very much. Next application that is up for adjournment is item 10 on the agenda, 25 Templeton Street. And this is a request again from the planning department. Planner there to articulate the request for the adjournment.
Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. I'm
Yes.
Suzanne Gibson. My address is 1066
Ma'am,
Somerset.
I'm asking to speak to the planner first. Mr.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Hamilton? Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We initially had concerns with this application, but had suggested an adjournment of the application and have discussed this with the applicant. I believe the intention is to adjourn to discuss the materiality of the building and potentially attaching it to the existing building.
Okay. And what length of time are we looking at as far as an adjournment? Do we adjourn this sine die, or do you figure there's a specific date we can adjourn to?
I believe a sine die adjournment would be the best option.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. And ma'am, again? You are?
Suzanne Gibson.
And you're the agent for review vote?
Yes, that's correct.
And you've heard and I'm assuming, looking at my notes, that that you're in agreement with an adjournment?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So everybody's in agreement. It's an adjournment sine die. All in favor on the committee? We'll adjourn this application sine die. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Well, there's no formal adjournment request for the next application. The committee is wondering whether or not it would be wise to do so. Items 11 and 12 on the agenda, 925 Falaise Road. I believe it's Mr. Segreto is the applicant's agent.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Segreto. And Ms. McCula is the planner on this application, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And regarding adjournment, Ms. McCula, you haven't indicated, the department hasn't indicated a request for adjournment, even though a revised site plan is filed on the 14th of February.
We have provided concerns report, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Department's position on adjourning this application until all of the issues are resolved.
We see the potential for the site to be developed in accordance with policies of the secondary plan, and also with retention of the tree, like not impacting the stability of the tree. So we have no concerns with adjournment because we see that the lot can be developed.
Okay. Mr. Segreto, you submitted a revised site plan on the 14th.
Yes, I did, Mr. Chair.
The neighbors in the area have seen that revised site plan?
Yes, they have. I have letters of support from a number of neighbors as well, and I'd like to proceed if we can today.
We've heard that the department would like to proceed. You said you've notified the neighbors. I guess as far as the committee is concerned, do we proceed with this application in the order that it's in? Yeah, okay. All right. We'll proceed with this application in the regular order. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. First application in the regular order today is item number 1, 54 York Street. Some minor variances to permit an increased height above grade and an increased area for an outdoor commercial patio. There's an amendment to that. Item number 1. The applicant's agent is Ainsley Dunstone.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Johnstone, before we begin, we have to administer the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I swear.
All right. So this is an application to put a patio on the roof of the commercial building at the corner of William and York.
That's correct.
All right, if you'd like to proceed with your application. Oh, we have just a note, there's an amendment to the minor variances. Variance B, as in Bob, has been deleted.
Yes, that's my understanding of the planning.
That was regarding the increased patio area. So that's no longer before us. It is only variance A to permit an outdoor commercial patio an elevation of 9.35 meters above grade, whereas the bylaw states that no portion of an outdoor commercial patio may be located at an elevation greater than 2 meters above ground level.
That's right. We are proposing a 89 square meter patio on the westerly limit of the rooftop of the building with a seating capacity of 54 persons. I believe this is best illustrated in items number 12. Actually, item number 14, there's a seating layout of the proposed patio. It will be set up at an elevation of 9.35 meters, as you indicated, Mr. Chair. There are also some images to give the application a bit more clarity. They are, there we go. Items 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. As you can see, where the safety barriers up there, that's exactly where the patio will be located. Is exactly 9.35 meters above surface level. Items number sorry. My apologies. One moment, please. Items number 2 and 3 do show the elevation from the York Street side as well as the William Street side. I've made some notes and barring any further questions on that part of the application where the patio will actually be located on top of the building, I'd like to go into the tests, but it should be noted that a building permit is underway for final construction and engineering of the rooftop to support the patio. There's other building permits involved in a massive renovation project of the former fish market. And so we are
Just out of
proposing
curiosity, Mr. Dunbar, what's the size of the patio going to be? How many square meters?
It's 89 square meters.
Okay. And you've indicated that there'll only be ambient noise?
That's right.
So
That's
there's no intention to have any live music on the roof?
No.
And what about lighting, Mr. Dunbar?
Only subdued lighting, the essentially enough to produce a safe environment for guests and patrons.
And the hours of operation of the patio?
Well, they'll be tied to the restaurant itself. The operator seeks the flexibility to be open all hours of usual liquor service, meaning 2 a.m. But granted, many evenings the restaurant may close at 9 p.m. So Mr. Borston owns a number of other restaurants, and he's a very seasoned operator, very respectful operator, known in the community. He's never had any issues or complaints in respect of his operations. So really the hours of the patio will be tied to the indoor operations of the restaurant itself.
And the months that this patio is intended to be open?
Apart from special events such as perhaps Winterlude, for instance, it's really only seasonal patio, whether April to October type thing.
I'm asking these questions because we are in all likelihood going to impose a set of conditions on the patio, which is something which this committee does on a regular basis for these kinds of operations.
Right. Okay.
Just wanted to get the background and from you before we we decide on those conditions. Okay, so you're going to address the 4 tests.
Yes, thanks. Variance contains the general intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw. The restaurant is a permitted use in the mixed use downtown zone. The intent of this particular zone is to foster and promote a mix of uses. The applicant, as mentioned, is proposing a number of measures, including only mild and subdued lighting, only ambient music, and tying the patio hours to the indoor restaurant operation. So in the sense, I guess I could frame it in the sense that the rooftop patio will not be open all night long through the early morning hours after liquor service, regulated liquor service. It should also be noted that, to my understanding, with the staff office, there is no residential or public objections against this application. In terms of any restrictions you may propose, I've attached 4 different liquor licenses with outdoor rooftop patios. They're items number 15, 16, 17, 18. And I have to propose this just in the interest of fairness to the applicant. These rooftop patios have no restrictions under the liquor license, and they're governed really only by the municipal noise bylaw in producing unusual noise and so on. We have the Andas. I believe we have Lowertown Brewing, Atari at the corner of Dalhousie and Clarence, and then Bar Gusto on Clarence as well, I believe. So none of those rooftop patios are governed by any restrictions. Test number 2, the variance maintains the general intent of the official plan. The subject property is designated mixed use downtown, as indicated. It permits a range of uses, including retail and service commercial uses such as restaurants, cafes. The proposed patio does not deviate from the intent of the official plan for mixed-use downtown zones. It will, in fact, contribute to the range of uses that currently exist in the Byward market. The variance is minor in nature. As indicated, there will be adequate mitigation measures, such as patio hours being tied to the indoor operation, lighting, ambient music. The cafe or the restaurant and proposed patio obviously are located in a commercial zone where such uses are generally permitted. The variance is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the property. Test 4. In the applicant's respectful opinion, commercial outdoor patio is consistent with the general community context. The variance is minor in nature, particularly with respect to its impact on surrounding uses. Mainly it's commercial. It's only on the outlying areas of the immediate Byward market that is residential, and approximately well over a third of a kilometer, I believe, to the nearest residential area. Those are my submissions, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Wildman, you had a question or comment?
Yes, I appreciate that the liquor license had no conditions applied to them on the other examples. I guess the other potential body to set conditions is this body. I guess what I heard you say about a third of a kilometer, if I'm not mistaken, to the next residential area or zone. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly?
You did hear me correctly, but that's really subject to just a quick verification on the distance, which I can do. It's
Okay.
certainly there's no residential zones in the immediate vicinity. It's nearest residential zones would be several blocks to the northeast.
Okay. Could I just have the planner for just one moment, please? Yeah, Mr. Hamilton, just in your opinion or in your review of the file, is there any concerns with proximity to residential at all in this case?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are provisions in the outdoor commercial patio section of the zoning bylaw which require a minimum setback distance from nearby residential uses. The applicant is well beyond or well below, sorry, those setback distances by about 200 meters, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Oakeshott.
Thank you. I wanted to ask the applicant if I believe there's a patio at the moment at the ground level. It looked that way anyway in the photo. So I just was wondering if that is going to remain or if this new patio is supplanting that.
We're not entirely certain yet. That patio was at the time a temporary pandemic relief measure. It encroaches on city property. There's a lot of work going on with the city in that particular area of the market, whether they're going to permanently close streets or not. So depending on whether municipal and provincial governments allow relief again this summer, which I believe they may, there may or may not be surface level patios. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have, while we've got this picture up here, Mr. Dunbar, I'm looking at the, what you're proposing to put a 1.32 meter solid or glass, transparent glass curtain wall along the edge of the patio.
That's right, a safety glass partition.
Is the floor of the patio at the top of the parapet, or is it beneath, below that?
Right at the very top.
Is 1.32 meters sufficient? Because yeah, I just note that in the zoning bylaw, when the city talks about railings on balconies, it's 1.5 meters, not 1.32.
Okay, that unfortunately is more of a technical question, engineering question to me. I would suspect that it would be covered under the building code once issued.
You may want to just
under the building permit. Sorry.
I'd check with staff on this to make sure you don't run into problems, just to make sure that you have an adequately high railing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Anything else to add, Mr. Dunbar?
I don't think so, sir.
Okay. I think what we'll do is we're going to reserve on this application and talk about and discuss the conditions that will be imposed regarding this this patio, should we approve. Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. You'll have our decision within 10 days.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
Next application on the agenda is item 2, 661 Keenan Avenue. It's an application for minor variances to permit a reduced rear yard setback and to permit a rear yard projection. It is proposed to reconstruct the 2-car garage and construct a 2nd-story addition above the new garage. And the agent for the applicant is Mr. Price. Is he there?
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Rod
Price,
Price,
your address for the record, please.
Oh, 47 Moore Street.
Okay. And before we begin to administer the oath, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I swear, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very briefly, Mr. Price, the nature of your request.
Yep, quick and dirty one, if you will, Mr. Chair.
As long as you answer the 4 test questions, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, sure. Basically, replacing an existing garage that enjoys legal non-conforming status. It's a smaller type home in McKellar Park neighborhood. So as adding a 2nd-story addition above the garage, because it has legal non-conforming status, the bylaw requires that it be set back a certain distance, but in order to gain a little extra floor space and consistent building massing, we've asked for variance in that 2nd-story addition, as well as a small variance for the rear yard requirement for a covered porch, as you can look at the back. We're aware of concern by the neighbor regarding the hedge. If you look at the survey that was proposed, that was sent in as part of the application, it's our opinion that the hedge is on our client's property. That being said, we'll try to retain it and work with the neighbor, but depending on excavation for that back portion for the proposed new 1-story addition along the property line, there may be some impacts to the hedge. As committee will know, and I'm sure agree, that is an item to be discussed between neighbors and not subject to a decision. So in terms of the tests, 4 tests for minor variance, it's minor in nature, just taking advantage of the existing legal non-conforming status. We're in conformity with the intent of the zoning bylaw and the OP as the single-family home is permitted, and it's compatible with the existing neighborhood in terms of the type of addition that we're adding. Through the pre-application process, staff, as well as the client and the architect, came to the determination that a neighborhood character analysis was not required. So I believe it meets the 4 tests set out in the act.
That neighborhood, that's a streetscape analysis isn't required because you already have front-facing garages.
That's right.
That's section 144.6, I believe, or 0.2. By the way, there is a slight amendment to variance B. It should now read to permit a projection of 3.28 meters into a legal non-complying as amended yard, no longer non-conforming, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum projection of 2 meters, but no closer than 1 meter from any lot line. Regarding the discussion with the neighbors, and we have correspondence from the neighbors immediately to the north who are very concerned that they're going to lose the hedge and the privacy that it provides them. There is case law out of Toronto that deals with shared trees, and quite frankly, if this hedge is on both properties, then you don't have a right. Your applicant does not have the right to remove that hedge without the other owner's permission. So I would suggest that you talk to them and suggest that you take a look at the survey. If this is a civil matter between neighbors, then yes, you're right, it doesn't include us, but it could be a legal matter and could end up getting somewhat drawn out unless you get it resolved fairly quickly.
Duly noted, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any questions, comments from the members of the committee? I note that the planning department is in support of the application. There are no conditions we're being asked to apply. So all in favor of the application with that slight amendment to the variance B. The application is granted. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have a great day, members of the committee.
Next application that we'll deal with are items 3 and 4, 41 and 43 Hampton Avenue. It's a consent to subdivide the property into 2 lots for the construction of a semi-detached dwelling and minor variances to permit reduced lot areas for a semi-detached dwelling. And the agent for the applicant is Mr. Cooper. Is he there?
Sorry, I lost video. Are you, am I now able to speak? This is Paul Cooper, the agent.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Before we begin, Mr. Cooper, your address for the record, please.
Yes, my address is 6 Rouleau Street, Gatineau, Quebec.
Okay, and I'll now administer the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do.
All right. All right, Mr. Cooper, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, so the application before the Committee of Adjustment today is for combined consent and minor variance at presently 43 Hampton Avenue. The intent is to sever the property and construct a semi-detached dwelling. And in order to do so, a minor variance of 2 square meters, we were deficient in 2 square meters as it relates to the requirement under the bylaw for the semi-detached lots. And so today we're asking for a minor variance of 2 square meters for each of the newly created lots, parts 1 and 2, as noted in the draft for our plan that was submitted along with the application.
Okay. And I take it you've discussed this application or this proposal with the neighbors?
Yes, we certainly have. The owners have had meetings and made an offer of meetings with all of the directly abutting neighbors in order to inform them about their intentions. And no neighbors came out with any significant concern. Any minor concerns that were addressed early on were easily responded to. In fact, we do have a letter of support from a neighbor at 47 Hampton Avenue.
Yes, we have that on our file.
Yeah, exactly. And then otherwise, we did our due diligence in terms of also reaching out to local community groups, board councillor, and there were no concerns expressed. The planning department has no concerns with the application as submitted. We feel that it's therefore appropriate. It meets the 4 tests. And we hope that it will be approved by this committee today.
And how does it meet the 4 tests
It
specifically?
meets the 4 tests in that it is consistent with the intent of the bylaw in terms of in the R3 zone, in terms of permitting an intensity as proposed of a semi-detached. In fact, the R3 zone would permit more intense forms than what's proposed. That the variances in fact are indeed minor. We're talking about 2 square meters, which to most people would not be perceptible from the public domain, and that it's consistent with the bylaw and the official plan in terms of the benefits of an intent to intensify and to create more intense land usage. And that we feel that the proposed application is consistent with other developments in the neighborhood. We've demonstrated, in fact, that there are examples of semi-detached dwellings that are also non-conforming, both historical and more recent, in the immediate vicinity to the proposed and subject site. And that it's, again, the building itself is consistent in terms of massing and materiality and the articulation of the building as experienced from the pedestrian realm.
You're aware of Hydro's comments regarding electrical supply. Is that the cost of installing is on you and the applicants, and the right-of-way people at the city, and private approach permits required if you create a new driveway?
Yes.
Okay. And there are a number of conditions: cash in lieu of parkland, a development agreement with the city regarding securities for tree number 1, and a tree planting plan. Tree protection fencing as shown in the tree information report. The existing dwelling removed, an accessory structure demolished and relocated, a grading and drainage plan to be submitted, a joint use and maintenance plan to be submitted as well. And we're going to add a standard committee of adjustment condition when we have consents and variances, that the owners provide evidence that the accompanying minor variance application has been approved with all levels of appeal exhausted.
Okay, very well.
All right. Any questions, comments from members of committee? All in favor of the application as presented to us? Your application is approved. Good luck with your project.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Next application we'll deal with today are items 6 and 7 on the agenda. These are 195 Hopewell. You consent applications to subdivide the property into 2 separate parcels of land for the construction of 2 detached dwellings, and minor variance applications to permit front-facing attached garages for 2 proposed dwellings. We're aware that a revised site plan was filed on the 16th of February in response to the planning department's concerns with the application, and that the planning department is satisfied with the revised site plan. There's also the site, from our understanding, the changes in the site plan are actually minor, so there's really no reason to adjourn this application to further review. So the applicant's agents for this application are Mr. West and Mr. Chown. Who's taking the application today?
That will be me, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. West. First, the oath or solemn declaration. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do swear.
Okay. Mr. West, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. I'm just going to wait for the coordinator to share their screen. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. The applications that we're hearing this today are minor variance and severance applications at 195 Hopewell. The subject site is located in the Capital Ward, close to Carleton University. It's on the north side of Hopewell Avenue. It's an area bounded by Sunnyside Avenue to the north, which you can see on your screen, Brewer Arena to the south, which is just off your screen, Bronson Avenue to the west, and Seneca Street to the east. With respect to the lot itself, it's an interior lot with 15.24 meters of frontage on Hopewell and an area of 546.5 meters squared. There's currently a detached dwelling on the property with driveway access off Hopewell. Switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the severance applications may look familiar as they were previously approved by the Committee of Adjustment on January 17th, 2019, and the severance decision has since lapsed. The proposal seeks to split the existing lot into two. Part 1 and 2 are shown on the draft reference plan on the image in front of you. As you can see, the proposed severances will be consistent with several subdivided lots in the vicinity of the property, specifically to the east, which is the right side of your screen. The surrounding area is characterized by subdivided lots. Switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the image in front of you shows severance application 1, which creates the westerly lot, which is labeled as part 1. Part 1 will have a total area of 232 meters squared, a depth of 30.48 meters, and a frontage of 7.62 meters on Hopewell. Switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. The image in front of you shows the second severance application, which creates the easterly lot labeled as part 2, which has an area of 232 meters squared, depth of 30.48, and a frontage of 7.62 meters on Hopewell. I'll now speak relatively quickly to the test for severances under the Planning Act, in the interest of time. So with respect to 53(1) of the Planning Act, a plan of subdivision is not required for the proper and orderly development municipality. With respect to 5124A, the proposed severances are within an inner area in the city of Ottawa and have regard for the following matters of provincial interest. That would be the supply, efficient use of energy and water, adequate provision, efficient use of communication, transportation, sewage, and water services, minimization of waste, the orderly development of safe and healthy communities, the appropriate location of growth and development, and the promotion of sustainable development. With respect to 5124B, the existing detached dwelling and the proposed severances are in an area, fully developed area rather, that has access to hard and soft services. So the severance is not premature. With respect to C, subject property is designated general urban area in the City of Ottawa official plan, which supports and encourages infill intensification. With respect to D, the proposed lots fully comply with the R3Q lot width and lot area requirements. With respect to F as well, since the proposed lot widths and lot area fully conform to the requirements of the zoning bylaw, they're compatible with existing land use patterns in the lot fabric of the neighborhood. With respect to I, there's adequate municipal services available. And with respect to J, there's adequate schools located in proximity to the subject property. So it's our opinion that the proposed severances maintain all tests of the Planning Act for severances and represent good land use planning. If you ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. So moving on into the actual design that's in front of you, the proposal seeks to demolish the existing detached dwelling and construct 2 detached dwellings in its place, one on each of the severed lots. A streetscape character analysis was submitted to the city on September 9th, and municipal staff confirmed the dominant character groups are ABA. So relief will be required to permit a front-facing attached garage. There is no relief required to permit a driveway, and there is no relief required to permit a front-facing principal entrance. The proposed dwellings shown on the site plan in front of you are generally consistent with the previously approved plans, but now require minor variances due to the amendments to the zoning bylaw that came into place in October 2020. So we'd like to point the committee to the driveway for Unit A, which is on the left side of your screen. The proposed driveway is compliant with the zoning bylaw. We don't require any relief from the streetscape character analysis to permit the driveway. And we note that the driveway for Unit A tapers as it approaches the street. And this modification of the driveway helps to retain the city tree on the property next door, which is 197 Hopewell. And you can see the tree sort of on the left side of the screen there. We'd also like to point out what's not on the site plan is that the front of the property has hydro wires that run over top of the front yard. And the proposed development provides tree planting space between the walkways of the two buildings, sort of in the center of the screen, meaning that our client can plant a tree that would be appropriate to grow underneath the hydro wires. So the proposed site plan not only saves the city tree on the adjacent property to the west, but allows room for a new tree to grow on the subject property without any conflicts to hydro wires. We note that municipal staff identified some concerns with respect to projections in the rear yard, and we have resolved these concerns on the most recent site plan that we submitted this morning. We apologize for the short notice on that. We simply added an opaque fence on the rear balcony to bring into compliance with the zoning bylaw, and we've circulated this to municipal staff, and they've confirmed that it's now compliant with the zoning bylaw. So just to reiterate, the proposed development conforms to all provisions of the zoning bylaw, save for the front-facing attached garage. The coordinator can switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the slide in front of you highlights the required variances. Variance A and B for part 1 and C and D for part 2 are functionally the same. As I'm sure the committee's seen many times, the zoning bylaw repeats the requirements for garages in both section 139 and 140. So we've applied for duplicate variances in the abundance of caution. If I can ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the slide in front of you is a rendering of the proposed development. The proposed single car garages have been designed to sort of blend with the front facade and draw attention to the house instead of the garages. You can see the garages are set back from the livable space on the second floor. The coloring and the materials chosen for the garage blend quite well with the building, and the architectural style of the building has been chosen to blend with other houses in the neighborhood. So as you can see on the image in front of you, there's adequate space for tree planting in front of the dwellings. We believe the proposed development fits well with the character of the neighborhood, regardless of the results of the streetscape character analysis. So before we get into the rationale for the minor variance, I'd like to just take the committee adjustment quickly to show what's possible as of right on this property. If the coordinator switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. The subject property is actually zoned to permit triplexes and semi-detached dwellings, and we are proceeding with detached dwellings on the property. The slide in front of you is from the City of Ottawa staff report that implemented the zoning bylaw that brought about the new streetscape character analysis rules. The built form shown in the image in front of you is rather large and blocky, and it really showcases cars and parking when viewed from the street. So instead of cars being parked within garages, a notch is carved out of each corner of the semi-detached dwelling that's shown in the image in front of you. And as I said, cars are very visible from the street. We note that the comments in the staff report have concerns with the location of the driveway in relation to the abutting property, but the built form shown in the image in front of you would actually make matters worse without the tapering of the driveway. Once again, we like to note we aren't seeking relief for driveways, only garages. If I could ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the slide in front of you is a real life example of what the permitted parking layout would look like. A development similar to this is permitted on the subject site. The built form shown in this image is not consistent with the character of the neighborhood on Hopewell, even if it's entirely possible as of right. We believe the proposed development fits into the neighborhood far more than the example in front of you, even if this built form would be permitted under the current zoning. Switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. And we'd also like to provide an overview as to the public comments that we've received for this proposal. The property at 197 Hopewell, which is immediately next door, wrote in a letter of support. This owner understands the proposed development has been designed to retain the tree in front of their property, the city tree to the west of the property. The property at 187 Hopewell was immediately next door on the other side, wrote a letter of support, as did the property at 185 Hopewell and 200 Hopewell and 182 Hopewell. We'd like to note that the property at 190 and 188 Hopewell both wrote letters of support. We note that these properties are immediately across the street for the proposed development, and they would be the properties that would be looking at the garages the most out of anyone else in this neighborhood. Arguably, the proposed minor variance would have the most impact on these properties, and they've offered their written support for these variances. And as a reminder, all the properties that are shown on the image in front of you are also those that have been captured by the streetscape character analysis. So I'll now speak to the rationale for minor variances. With respect to test number 1, maintaining the general intent and purpose of the official plan. Subject site is general urban area. The general urban area permits the development of full range and choice of housing types to meet the needs of all ages, incomes, and life circumstances. Section 2.5.1 of the old official plan defines compatibility as compatible development means that although it's not necessarily the same as or similar to existing buildings in the vicinity, can enhance and establish community through good design and innovation and coexist with existing developments without causing undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties. The proposed attached garages are similar to the existing buildings in the vicinity of the subject site, though not the dominant characteristic. These front-facing attached garages have been designed to coexist with surrounding built forms and not cause any undue adverse impacts. The proposed front-facing attached garages are compatible with the street. There are no variances being requested with respect to building height, front yard setback, rear yard setback, and interior side yard setbacks. The proposed development is designed to be compatible with the desired characteristics of the neighborhood. If I ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the second test for minor variances is the maintaining the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. And the intent of the new streetscape character provisions for locations of garages was to avoid streetscapes that are being dominated by garages and to focus more from a design perspective on the residential building. So the proposed development has clear separation between the proposed garages and the driveways. And the separation on the proposed development reduces any visual impact. The garage of the proposed development is set back from the front facade by 1.6 meters, which is greater than the 0.6 meters that would be required if the front-facing garages are permitted. The proposed development has been designed to bring attention to the front facade through a setback of the garage and our architectural elements directly above the garage door. The design of the proposed development draws attention very much away from the garage and towards the protruding darker bricks that our client has chosen for materiality. It's our opinion that the minor variances maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. And I'll get further into this more when I provide some examples in the upcoming slides. With respect to the third test for minor variances, is they're considered desirable for the use of the land. The proposed minor variants are considered desirable as they provide a legal enclosed parking space for the proposed detached dwellings. The subject property is zoned to permit semis. The lot area and lot width of the subject property are large enough to support the as-of-right development of semi-detached dwellings. And the proposed detached dwellings are more consistent with the neighborhood than the as-of-right semis without garages. And the proposed minor variances move the parking space internal and you don't see cars when viewed from the street. It's our opinion that the third test is met. With respect to the fourth test, is that the minor variances are considered minor in nature. The streetscape character analysis examined 21 lots in close proximity to the subject site, and it determined that 8 properties out of the 21 subject to the streetscape character analysis, which is more than a third of the properties examined, have front-facing attached garages. The properties with front-facing attached garages are shown on the image in front of you. It's worth noting that the streetscape character analysis only applied to the north side of Hopewell. It would consider the adjacent 5 properties to the east and the west. And for the properties on the north side of Hopewell, the front-facing attached garages would be considered the dominant characteristic of the street, and we wouldn't be here seeking a variance. If I ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the following slides show properties with front-facing attached garages within the streetscape character analysis. So the images in front of you are 207 and 205 Hopewell, and they're located about 4 properties to the west of the subject site, and they obviously have front-facing attached garages. These front-facing attached garages are for semi-detached dwellings, and they're located side by side. And this results in a large asphalt surface when viewed from the street. And also, as mentioned in the staff report for the changes to the zoning bylaw, the intent of the zoning bylaw was to make the front facade more dwelling focused instead of garage focused, and to reduce the impact of large asphalt surfaces. So it's worth noting that the design of the driveway at 205 and 207 Hopewell would also require a landscaping strip separating the driveways under the current zoning bylaw. If I ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the image in front of you shows 181 and 183 Hopewell, and they're located immediately to the east of the subject site, and they also have front-facing attached garages. These front-facing attached garages are for 2 separate semi-detached dwellings, and they're long and they lead to a long slope driveways leading to a front-facing attached garage. If I ask the coordinator to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And similar to the previous 2, the images in front of you are at 185 and 187 Hopewell. Once again, long driveways leading to attached garages. If I ask the coordinator to switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So 188 and 190 Hopewell are shown on the image in front of you. And these are the ones that are located directly across the street from the subject site. And they also have front-facing attached garages. So these front-facing garages are obviously for semis. They're side by side, which, as I previously said, results in a large asphalt surface. And similarly, as I said, in the intent of the staff report was to reduce the impacts of these large asphalt surfaces. The intent of the zoning bylaw is to make the front facades more dwelling focused instead of garage focused and asphalt focused. We would note that these properties, they're directly across the street. And as I mentioned, these are the properties that wrote in letters of support for the proposed development. So with respect to the streetscape character analysis, 8 of the 21 dwellings had front-facing attached garages. The streetscape character analysis found that 60% of the dwellings on the north side of Hopewell had front-facing attached garages, or properties on the north side of Hopewell. There is sufficient evidence that front-facing garages are present throughout the street, and the approval of this minor variance application would not significantly alter the character of the street. The proposed front-facing attached garages for the proposed development are set back from the front facade and have been separated and have separation between the driveways, unlike some of the other examples. This reduces any visual impact of the front-facing attached garages, and the proposed development is designed to be 2 separate driveways, which further reduces any impact for asphalt surfaces. Breaking up the driveways provides a larger landscaped area between the driveways and allows us some room for tree planting as well. The proposed development is designed to meet all the requirements of the zoning bylaw for front yard landscaping as well. The proposed development has been designed with architectural features that draw attention away from garages, and drawing attention from the garages reduces any visual impact from the street. It's our opinion that the proposed minor variants are considered minor in nature. So it's our opinion that the proposed minor variances maintain all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and the proposed development represents good land use planning. We'd be happy to answer any further questions, but I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Any questions from the members of the committee? Comments? The planning department is opposed to this application. Ms. Pecula, I believe, is the planner on the file. Ms. Pecula.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have no concerns with the consent application itself, but we oppose the variance streetscape character analysis.
And I understand that you want us to impose some sort of a condition regarding the slope driveways. Should we approve this application?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I'm wrong then. All right. So this is the department's standard response to front-facing garages with an SCA where they're not the majority on the street.
Yes.
I'm assuming that the driveways are going to meet the required slope.
Yes, and the width.
Okay. All right. All right. Mr. West, you're aware of all of the conditions that the department has requested.
Are aware. I just was having some conversations with planning staff this morning with respect to condition number 12. And the condition number 12 is the condition related to the noise studies. And it's my understanding that this condition is only triggered when you're within 100 meters of an arterial road, and we're 185 meters from the nearest arterial road. So I'd just like some clarifications as to if this condition should be applied.
Ms. Pecula?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Engineering staff is looking into applicability, and I can follow up with the addendum to waive the condition if it will be applicable.
But not today.
Upon the engineering staff review, yes.
So if we impose a noise attenuation study today, that can still be removed at some future point.
I for sure will have the answer before the written decision is issued. Yes.
Okay. So there's a good chance that that particular condition will be removed.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. You okay with that, Mr. West?
We're fine with that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have one question. The notice on title of noise from a railway line. Which railway line are you speaking to specifically?
Trillium Rail Corridor, Mr. Chair.
And how far away is that?
It's 470 meters, and we impose this notice on title for developments within the distance of 500 meters.
Of a rail line?
Yeah.
And is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that Trillium line not in a cut? Low grade?
I'm not aware about that. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Just looking here. Standard comments from Hydro, you're aware of, Mr. West?
We are aware of those, yes.
And the right-of-way people private approach and permits needed if you put a curb cut in.
Yep, we've reviewed those comments and we're fine with them.
Okay. So we think what we'll do, given the department's strong objection to this based on the streetscape character analysis results, we'll reserve on this application. We need to add the standard committee of adjustment condition regarding clearing any appeals, the minor variance. So there's a condition in place that provide evidence that the accompanying minor variance applications have been approved with all levels of appeal exhausted. We impose that on a fairly regular basis. And I'm wondering if your client would agree to having, if we approve, having these approvals tied to the plans filed and the site plan.
Yeah, we're fine with that.
Given the support of the neighbors, it'd be nice to have them, give them some certainty that what's going to be built is what they've seen in the plans.
Yep, understood.
Okay.
We're fine with
Okay.
that. Thank you.
We'll impose that. Condition as well, should we approve. All right, we're going to reserve this application, and you'll hear from us in 10 days. Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Yeah. The next application on the agenda is 560 Queen Mary Street. And this is a consent to subdivide a property into 2 parcels of land for a proposed semi-detached dwelling. And the agent for this application is it Mr. Gossin? You are the property owner, sir, and your address for the record, please.
My address is 450 Tremblay Road in Ottawa.
Okay. So very briefly, we've already reviewed all the materials for this application. Tell us exactly what you want.
Mr. Chair, please.
Oh,
remain
yes,
studio.
yes, I forgot
Thank
about
you.
that. First time today, I've forgotten this. Not bad. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do swear, Mr. Chairman.
I need to write this on my forehead. Anyway, please proceed.
Very briefly, my company, Royal SMS Construction, has bought this property on 560 Queen Mary, and the intention of demolish this property and build semi-detached, 2 semi-detached side by side. And I think it's and including I'm getting a permit for separate basement as well as DU for the benefit of the community, because there's in that area there's a lot of rental, I don't want to say issues, but rental demand. And I just look forward for the committee to approve this application. It's so simple.
There are a number of requirements that you should be dealing with when we have consent applications before us, because it's either a consent or it's a plan of subdivision. So how does your application not need a plan of subdivision?
It's a zoning as R4 for subdivision, but I decide to make a semi-detached.
I think you need to look up the information regarding consent applications in the province of Ontario. If you were listening to the previous applicant, they filed a very comprehensive rationale for why there shouldn't be a plan of subdivision, and this is something we have to deal with at the committee. So, quite frankly, I think in future you need to address those matters when you're coming before committee for a simple consent.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Aware of that.
And staff, either planning staff or staff at the committee, can give you direction towards the parts of the act and the regulation that applies. Anyway, so this is just as you're aware of the conditions that the city is asking for: cash in lieu of parkland, a tree planting plan, an existing dwelling removed, servicing plan, accessory structure demolished, relocated, and a joint use and maintenance agreement as well. Okay. And hydro standard comments. If you're providing, if electrical service has to be provided, you're paying for that, obviously. And if there's a need for a private approach, a permit for either these, a new private approach for either of these 2 dwellings, you're going to have to get an encroachment agreement or a private approach permit to get that approval. Okay. Any comments, questions from the members of committee regarding this consent application? All in favor of the application as provided to us? Okay. Your consent's approved. Thank you.
Sure. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Next application on the agenda is item number 9, 47 Lees Avenue. It's a minor variance application for reduced lot width, lot area, and a reduced corner side yard for the conversion of a duplex building to a 3-unit dwelling. And the agent for this application is Mr. Segreto. Again, Mr. Segreto, for the record, your address, please.
30 Concourse Gate, Unit 47.
And the oath or solemn declaration, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time?
I do swear.
All right. All right, Mr. Segreto, briefly on this application.
Mr. Chair, this application was heard this past summer in August, and at that time I was asking for 2 variances. It was from my understanding, was a 3-story duplex, and the application in front of you was to convert it into a triplex. In order to do so at that time, I went for lot width and lot area that were approved by this committee.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we did miss one of the variances. It was an interior side yard variance that was missed due to the fact that it is a triplex. Therefore, I'm asking for a interior side yard variance to reduce the interior side yard of 0.4 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 1.2 meters. Nothing has changed to the plans. The building itself, it exists the way it was. The footprint is the same. It's just that we missed that interior side yard variance in order to establish a 3-unit triplex dwelling.
I'm just curious, since we've already granted A and B, why are they being applied for again?
I think just out of caution, Mr. Chair, just to make sure that we get it right. And that's why I put them in again. Sometimes what happens is we reapply, and we want to make sure that those variances are included in our application.
And I note that we've changed the wording of variance C to permit a reduced interior side yard, not a corner side yard.
That's right.
0.4 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum interior, not a corner side yard of 1.2 meters.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments from the members of the committee? Okay. This is just a variance for a side yard that was not dealt with last year because we weren't dealing with a triplex. All in favor of the application to vary the side yard? Application's approved, Mr. Segreto.
Thank you so much.
Next application we'll deal with is item 12. Pardon me, items 11 and 12 on the agenda. 925 Falaise Road. The consent to subdivide the property into 2 separate parcels of land for the construction of 2 new detached dwellings with 1 dwelling on each of the newly created lots. Existing detached dwellings to be demolished. And then minor variances to permit reduced lot widths and lot areas. It is proposed to construct 2 new detached dwellings with 1 dwelling on each of the newly created lots. The existing detached dwelling is to be demolished. This was adjourned last July the 7th. And I believe, yes, there's a revised site plan that was filed with us, with committee on the 14th of February. And site plan has been revised to indicate reduced driveway areas and additional green space on the proposed lots. According to the applicant, there are no changes to the proposed severance or the variances requested. So Mr. Segreto is the agent for the applicant again, and once again, we'll go through the solemn oath or declaration. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time.
I do swear.
You're aware, Mr. Segreto, that the planning department has concerns with the application?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Actually,
We've had a lot of dialogue back and forth with the planner. We've
Yep.
done a number of proposals to see if we could have some sort of common ground with respect to the severance of this property. I don't think there's any questions with respect to the variances with lot width or lot area on this particular property. It is a lot which is 100 by 100 in an R1 GG zone. In Carlton Heights, there have been numerous severances that have happened over the years and been approved with respect to lot width and lot area. The concerns that planning have, I believe, are the only concerns of the driveway and garage with this new secondary plan, which has recently come into effect. I don't know if it's finalized or not, but the issue is basically the driveway that we're trying to deal today and trying to resolve. I can take you through this.
why don't we, I believe it's Ms. Bakula. Why don't we hear from Ms. Bakula? She can tell us what the department's concerns are and the applicability of the Carlton Heights secondary plan. Ms. Bakula, please proceed.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So the second driveway on part 4 on the draft reference plan will impact the city-owned tree stability, and the secondary plan at the same time prescribes the applicant to comply with the policies to not provide new driveways. And upon the conversation, the design by the applicant was presented where the site plan satisfies the secondary plan policies, and at the same time providing stability, preservation of the tree in terms of not providing driveway within the critical root zone, but only the servicing. And the planning department is of the opinion that this design should be accommodated to comply with policies and to assure structural stability of the tree. Thank you.
And that's the design that's in in the department's report?
Yes. It's a draft design site plan.
We have in here the initial site plan, and there's the revised site plan, and then there's the example of the alternative.
Yes.
And that's the one that the department supports is the alternative?
Yes, it's a shared curved driveway.
Okay. All right. All right, Mr. Segreto, please proceed.
Thank
you, Mr. Bakula.
Can we go to the PowerPoint? Okay, so this is the subject property, single-family dwelling, little bungalow, which my clients are proposing to demolish and to construct two single-family dwellings. The tree that we're discussing is the one on the right-hand side that you can clearly see. Next slide, please. This is the draft R plan in front of you, and there is a easement, I believe a utility easement on part 1 along the west side and along the back. You can see the easement parts 3 and parts 5 as well, again for utilities. But you can clearly see the lots are equally divided, and hopefully we can establish 2 new single-family dwellings. Next slide. This is the perspective of the proposed dwellings that we're hoping to develop. To the west, you can clearly see that there has been development that has happened. I've done that project, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago, which was approved. The lots are very similar to what we're proposing here today. In the middle of the property, you can clearly see that there's a hydrant, and we're protecting that hydrant with the proper setbacks in order to maintain that hydrant there. And in addition to that, the tree as well, we're trying to protect that tree as well. And we've got a reduced driveway of about 3 meters on the 2 proposed dwellings in front of you. Next. So this is the example that we would like to do, and we would like the committee, I believe, to approve today. On the left-hand side, part one, you can see the hatched area in red or pink. That is the existing driveway of the existing house, which is there. And you can see there's a surface of 91.4 square meters or so of asphalt driveway. Now, what we've done is on the new two houses, you can clearly see the proposed driveway, which is roughly 3 meters or so. And on parts 4, again, the reduced driveway is there as well. It clearly shows you that there's a lot less asphalt on this proposal than what was originally there. And we're also proposing to have a permeable type of driveway, which is obviously grass with some interlocking stone there that would be able to take a lot of the drainage issues away from the site. We're also, you can see that the tree is being protected as well, the one off to the right-hand side. Next slide, please. That's the subject property, an overview of it. There's the existing driveway that you can see. And that's just indicating that the asphalt overlay on that property, which exists now off to the west, you can see there's 2 new houses that have been built, and there's a vacant lot there for a third one, which is under construction at the moment. Next slide. Now, no, another one. Another slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so this is the proposal, I believe, that planning would like us to achieve something in this area. We've explored it with a single driveway, a shared driveway with right-of-ways, and we truly believe that this becomes too complicated and too cumbersome. And when you look at this sort of design, which planning is sort of looking at, it is very difficult to park your car, obviously park your car in the driveway, which 90% of people do, and we all know that the legal parking space is inside the garage. But in addition to that, you can clearly see that there's a lot of asphalt between the two houses, so on and so forth. And not only that, you're sharing a driveway. It becomes very difficult when you're trying to develop a home in this particular neighborhood, when you're investing millions of dollars into these homes and whatnot, that you have to share a driveway. In addition to sharing the driveway, who is responsible for cleaning the snow and maintaining the snow? How do you park if you have a visitor coming over, a family member or whatever? The school is directly across the street from you, and there, I believe, there's no on-site parking in front of these, in front of the street, so you can't park on the street either. So this type of proposal, which the planning is, the city is promoting, is not really functional for this particular site that's in front of you. The other item that I would like to discuss too is, as of right, if I were to demolish that house and build myself a 4,000 square foot house, I believe I would be entitled to do a 1.5 to 2.5 car garage, and I would be able to have a driveway, which is roughly 6 meters in width, that would accommodate the 2 driveways that I'm doing now at 3 meters each. So I would not need any additional permits or any permission to create a bigger driveway. So what I'm proposing is, with the 2 driveways that we're putting, there's no additional water drainage going up into the street or into the ditches that's in front of you right now. Next slide, please. So this is what was another proposal that was thrown out there as well. And on the left-hand side, you can see the sketches that the city, the planners are proposing, with a shared driveway in the back. On our site, it really doesn't work due to the fact that the lot is not deep enough. And in order to do that, you would have to create either surface parking in the back or 2 single-car garages in the back. And for this site here, with this proposal, it just doesn't work out. It just It just doesn't make sense. You get issues of neighbors after complaining with lights in the back, with exhaust fumes in the back, so on and so forth. And we don't have the depth. If we would have had 120 feet, 150 feet, or 200 feet, like some of the lots in the area, which do have that, we probably could have looked at that. But in this case here, because of the easement in the back as well, you can't build on the utility easement. It'd be very difficult to have this sort of a proposal on this site. Next, please. So again, we did a number of proposals. On the left-hand side, you can see we've done some sort of a horseshoe type of driveway. Again, you need parts, right-of-ways established, new parts and right-of-ways established. You really can't park, visitors can't come, guests, family members can't park. You can't park on the street here either. So the horseshoe driveway really doesn't work either. Then we tried another one where you would come in with the 3-meter wide driveway, then coming off to the one side. Again, you would have to give part of your ownership would have to have the right of way for the guy on part one would have to give the guy on part 4 the right to drive onto his property and then have service parking on the side. In our opinion, it just doesn't work on this particular site. And we've tried, to do 3 or 4 different variations of it. And the only one that we could really come up with is the one that I originally proposed in the beginning. Next slide, please. With respect to the lot fabric of the area, the subject property is at the top corner. You can see in pink, and next door to us is 3 single-family dwellings that were just built recently, and then all the other blue parcels are lots of the same nature. Those are the 3 houses that are right next door to the subject property of the little bungalow on the right-hand side that are existing right now. And you can clearly see they all have, I guess it's 1 or 1.5 car garage that is going onto the public street. Next slide, please. So what we did here is we did protect the tree as best we can. We have the report from the arborists, and it just indicates the protections measured that we have to take should we be successful in getting this application approved. Next slide. Those are the trees, I believe. The one at the top corner is showing the tree right in front of you that will be protected. It's a maple. I believe it's a red maple. Next slide. We did canvass the area. We did talk to some of the neighbors. We do have some letters of support in this application, and these are letters that were just added to the file. Next slide. This is one of the dwellings, just the architectural drawings, as you could see from the streetscape that we did. So this is the one house on parts 1 and 3. Next slide. And that's the house on parts 4 and 5. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, in a nutshell, is that with respect to the 4 tests, I believe that the variances that are in front of you with respect to lot width and lot area are minor. The characteristics of this neighborhood, there are other lots that are similar in the neighborhood. It does blend in well with this neighborhood. It does fit in well. It is supportive. I believe it's desirable. And I think it's a good fit for the neighborhood, in my opinion. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Segredo. Ms. Young, regarding the tree, how protected will this be?
Oops. Hi there. Through you, Mr. Chair. I am concerned with the amount of protection described by the arborist. It doesn't meet the usual setbacks that are listed in best management practices of 3 times the diameter of the tree, no excavation within that zone. So I think with this application, my main concern is the services because they will be the deepest excavation. And so I would need to see a plan showing where the services are located as far as possible from the tree and outside of that 3 times the diameter measurement. And then we would need to see some kind of alternative driveway design to allow a driveway with very little excavation within that zone to be assured that the tree will survive. So we have put in conditions to that effect, and I think we can move forward with that.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Oakeshott, you had questions, comments?
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the applicant was aware of the concerns raised by the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board.
Yes, I am. I was aware of. I'm sorry. I am aware of those conditions with respect to the construction and moving forward with the application. We did address it with, I believe it's Miss Janet McDonald, who had the same concerns when we were doing the other project next door. But I am aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wildman?
For Mr. Segreto, I take it from Ms. Young's comments that she has yet to see where the services are proposed to be. Is that correct?
The only thing I can do with that is that I can have our engineer, Tony Mack, look at it and obviously create the services rather than getting close to the tree, keeping it as far away from the tree. And if it means going off to the one side of the house and having the services go through the garage, we've done that in the past. Rather than going through the front portion of the house, we can go through the garage and sleeve through the garage, and we can have services to go through there. But I would definitely talk with the engineers and see what we would be able to come up with.
Right. Yeah, so sleeving through the garage is an option. Yeah, I guess for me, I'm just trying to figure out at what point how far do we want to go to satisfy Ms. Young's concerns in advance of proceeding with an approval? And would it be more appropriate to see if we could get a design from Mr. Mack that would satisfy Ms. Young, as well as the infrastructure people all at once, and maybe come back in 2 weeks and be done with it. Yeah, I don't have a particular concern with what you're proposing, Mr. Segreto, but I do appreciate the concerns of Ms. Young, and I would feel much better about it if the servicing details, which are the deep cuts that are going to occur, have been dealt with in a manner that Ms. Young feels a bit more comfortable and that the infrastructure team can agree on. So I guess that's kind of where I lean. As I said earlier, I'm not particularly against the proposal. It's just hammering out those last few details. So with that, I'll leave it, and I'll leave it with the rest of the committee in terms of what to do next. Perhaps you may wish to look to adjourn for 1 week or one meeting and just see if you can hammer those details out, because I don't imagine that Mr. Mack would have a great deal of challenges putting together a plan that would show the depth and the distances of the cuts. But I'm in the rest of the committee's hands in terms of how to proceed with that. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Segreto?
I think it's a good suggestion, and I'm willing to do that. I believe 2 weeks is not the end of the world for us to get this right. If that's what it means to move forward with this, I would be more than happy to have Mr. Mack come up with a plan that we can send off to Ms. Young.
And perhaps you can take the 2 weeks to take a look at your driveway configuration and come up with something which is not going to negatively impact that mature tree in the front yard. Gives you a little more time to discuss.
I will look at that.
Okay. All right. Well, with the consent of the rest of the committee, what we'll do is we'll adjourn this as we, at this point. And Mr. Segreto will be coming back with further information for Ms. Young, and obviously you're going to forward that to us as well.
I will.
All right. And that means the hearing would be, what's the date, Mr. Garnett?
That would be March 2nd, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we'll adjourn to March 2nd, 2022. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.